We begin in silence. Hall's base stretches endlessly in all directions, a black ocean pricked with cold stars, and moving through that ocean, like a lone ship crossing a midnight sea, is the Galaxy-class starship Enterprise. Not in our universe, but in one where the myths of Warhammer 40K brush shoulders with the hopeful future of Star Trek. This is the story of what happened the day the Enterprise met a living legend of another reality. The day Horus Lupercale stepped aboard. Our story opens on the bridge of the Enterprise. Everything is calm. The familiar hum of the engines vibrates in the floor. Officers move between stations with quiet confidence. Captain Jean-Luc Picard sits in his chair, watching the stars slide past on the main view screen. Then something appears ahead. Not a ship, not a planet, a bruise in space. On the viewer, the stars distort and bend around a swirling blackened vortex. Its heart is pure darkness, rimmed in sickly violet and green light, like a pupil staring back at them. Picard leans forward slightly. "Report, Mr. Data." Data's golden eyes focus on his console. His voice stays calm, but the words are not. Sensors detect a localized warp anomaly. Subspace density off the charts. Psionic flux. Gamma band spikes. In simpler terms, it's a tear in reality that looks angry. As the Enterprise draws closer, Counselor Troy stiffens in her chair. Her eyes lose focus for a moment, like she's hearing a voice no one else can. "There's something inside," she whispers. "Not just random energy. A mind, old, furious, and grieving." Picard orders 1/4 impulse. Yellow alert. The lights shift to amber. On the screen, the anomaly pulses, swelling like a beating heart. For a moment, shapes flicker inside its depths. Towering spires, shattered cathedrals, the suggestion of armored giants frozen mid-charge. Then they vanish, leaving only the swirling wound. Worf, standing at tactical, feels a chill even a Klingon doesn't like to admit. It feels wrong, he rumbles. As if the void itself is watching us. It don't have to wait long to find out why. The anomaly suddenly lashes outward. A tendril of warp lightning slams into the Enterprise's shields. The ship shudders violently. Consoles flash. In engineering, Geordi shouts over the comm that they just took a massive warp shockwave. Shields are holding, but the power grid is straining. Picard keeps his voice steady. "Hold us at the edge of that thing," he orders. "Do not let it pull us in." But it's not pulling them in. Something inside is pushing its way out. In the center of the vortex, a shape begins to form. Tall, humanoid, wrapped in shadows and gold. The lights on the bridge flicker. Once, twice, and then for a heartbeat, everything goes white. The next clear moment is in the main shuttle bay. The large doors are sealed. Force fields shimmer faintly. Cargo crates sit in orderly rows. Shuttlecraft docked in their berths. And then reality screams. A column of warp light erupts on the deck, twisting like a tornado made of shadow and molten metal. Air roars inward. The gravity field strains to compensate. Technicians stumble backwards, shouting in panic. Inside that swirling column, a silhouette forms, massive, armored, inhumanly broad-shouldered. The light collapses like a dying star, and where it stood, now stands Horus Lupercale. He is enormous, towering over the humans around him. His power armor is a nightmare wrought in gold and black. Giant pauldrons bear the stylized eye of Horus. Chaos runes glow a dark, unhealthy red across his chest plate. One eye burns bright with hell-lit rage. The other is lost in a mass of scar and warp taint, a shadow crawling across his face like a living infection. He doesn't just stand in the shuttle bay. He seems to warp the space around him. The air looks darker near him. The lights seem dimmer. 2 security officers rush in, phasers already drawn. "Drop your weapons," one of them shouts. "You're aboard a Federation starship." Horus turns his head, lazily, as if noticing a pair of insects. He doesn't raise a weapon. He doesn't take a step. He simply looks. A pulse of invisible force radiates outward. One officer is thrown across the bay like a doll, slamming into a wall and collapsing in a heap. The second fires a panicked phaser shot. The beam hits Horus square in the chest and bends away, dispersing harmlessly across his armor. Horus glances down at the faint scorch mark. It fades as if ashamed to have existed. His voice, when he speaks, is deep and resonant, like a war drum echoing down a metal corridor. "Not Imperial," he observes. "Smaller, softer, different galaxy, same defiance, more footsteps, heavy, urgent." The shuttle bay doors open again. Commander Riker strides in at the head of a full security team, phaser aimed. Beside him, Worf battleth on his back, phaser holstered now almost out of instinct. And behind them, Captain Picard, Counselor Troy, and Data. Picard steps forward until he's standing several meters away from the War Master. He tilts his head up, meeting that burning eye without flinching. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard, of the Federation Starship Enterprise," he says. "You've boarded my ship uninvited, attacked my crew, and destabilized this region of space. Explain yourself." Horus studies him, the giant, and the captain. After a long, heavy pause, he answers, "I am Horus Lupercal, War Master, son of the Emperor of Man." His tone hardens, heavy with venom. "Betrayer and betrayed." Troy almost doubles over under the weight of his presence. In her empathic senses, he's not just one mind. He's a storm of minds. Millions of screams compressed into one soul. Pride, love, fury, utter despair. Worf, never one to back down, growls under his breath. "War Master." He speaks like a conqueror. Horus's gaze drifts to Data. "A crafted mind," he notes. "A tool that outlived its maker's control. I know that story." Data, ever curious, points a trick order at him and reads impossibilities. Human, but more infused with psychic energy. Armor phasing in and out of conventional space-time. Something that should belong to a grimdark universe. Not this hopeful one. Picard, calmly, cuts through the tension. "We can trade mythology later," he says. "Right now that anomaly is tearing at subspace. Your arrival made it worse. Help us close it, or we will find a way to remove you." Horus's lip curls. "You misunderstand, Captain. I did not cause the wound. I answered it." He gestures vaguely, a tear in the wall, a scar in reality. "I followed its echo. Your ship brushed against a wound in a sky far older than you know." He turns his back and starts walking out of the bay, as if he owns it. Picard makes a subtle gesture. "Mr. Worf," he says quietly. "Shadow him, discreetly." Worf nods, already moving. Troy watches Horus go, rubbing her temples. "There's something else," she murmurs. "Beneath all of that rage, he's mourning. He hates himself almost as much as he hates everything else." Picard's eyes narrow. "That," he says softly, "might be the only leverage we've got." Horus walks the length of the Enterprise, like a ghost of war visiting a dream of peace. In the corridors, crew flatten themselves against the walls as he passes. staring wide-eyed at the giant in black and gold. His armored boots thud like thunder. Bulkheads creak under his weight. In a science lab, he pauses before a holographic map of the Milky Way, crisscrossed with Federation borders and exploration routes. He studies it with a faint smirk, civilization carved into neat lines, as if reality obeys a grid. In 10 forward, conversations die as he walks past the windows, a towering figure briefly silhouetted against starlight. Inside, Guinan wipes a glass and watches him with quiet interest. She's seen things, and Horus has a look she recognizes. Not just monster, something broken. Want a drink? She asks as he approaches. He turns to face her, surprised she's not afraid. You are calm, he notes. Should I be? She asks. Most mortals quake when they sense chaos. Guinan shrugs slightly. I've lived a long time, seen empires rise and fall, seen so-called gods come and go. You're not the first warlord to walk into my bar, Horus. He looks at her more carefully now. You see too much, bartender, and you carry too much, she answers. I just read the weight. He asks for nothing, but she replicates a small glass of 21 set century Terran whiskey anyway, and slides it over. In his massive hand, it looks like a toy. He takes a sip. A tiny, almost forgotten smile touches his lips. We drank something like this, he says quietly. Once. Before everything. Before everything went wrong. Guinan finishes gently. He tenses. The armor creaks. You think I had a choice, he growls. The warp carved its mark into my soul. I was my father's chosen son, then his executioner. There it is again, that word, father. Guinan's eyes soften. You still talk about him, she says. That says more than all your threats. For a heartbeat, his gaze is not a war master's, it's a son's. Then the moment breaks. He sets the glass down. It cracks under the pressure of his fingers. Enjoy your illusions while you can, Horus says, turning away. Soft things die when the storm comes, and he leaves a shadow of war, walking through a starship of dreamers. The longer Horus stays aboard, the more the Enterprise begins to dream his dreams. In one crew quarters, a junior officer jolts awake, sweating. He doesn't know why he's shaking. In his mind, he just watched a world burn under the tread of giants. He heard the name Terra on 1,000 dying lips. But he's never heard that word before. In sickbay, Dr. Beverly Crusher frowns at readings from a patient who arrived complaining of nightmares. Brain waves show normal patterns, overlaid with something else. A second layer, like another person's memories trying to squeeze into the same mind. She doesn't like what that implies. On the holodeck, a group of crew are running a Klingon combat program. Rocky terrain, red sky, holographic warriors roaring as they charge. Then the sky glitches, red dims to black. The rocks twist into jagged Gothic ruins. Klingon warriors flicker and dissolve, replaced by towering figures in Baroque armor, painted in blasphemous colors. 8 pointed stars loom overhead. The holodeck safety protocols flicker. The crew tap their badges, call for the arch. But the arch doesn't appear. One unfortunate ensign staggers back as a demonic thing, more shadow than substance, glides toward him. It passes through him like icy smoke. His scream is real. Later, Worf and a security team storm into that same holodeck and find the simulation twisted into an echo of some distant, corrupted battlefield. Banners with the eye of Horus hang from smoking spires. Wounded crew lie trembling, babbling names of battles they never fought. High above them, a spectral image appears, Horus, watching them with amused contempt. Your ship is a canvas. His voice booms. Your computer, a palette. I paint my war upon it. War fires a phaser burst through the image. It passes right through. The vision laughs and dissolves. This is no mere intruder. This is a psychic contagion. Picard tries diplomacy. He invites Horus to his ready room. The two sit across from each other. The prim, disciplined starship captain and the battered warlord of a dead empire. Picard asks the only question that really matters. Why? Why the rebellion? Why the slaughter? Why the warp-touched horror that now clings to him like a cloak? Horus explains in fragments. He speaks of a father, an emperor, who found him on a distant world and raised him above all others, who gave him legions and the stars themselves to conquer. He speaks of leading a great crusade, not as a tyrant, but as a general believing in a higher purpose, unity for humanity. He speaks of brothers, other primarchs, each a demigod in their own right. And then he speaks of lies, of secrets, of the moment he believed his father's so-called utopia was another form of slavery, of how the warp whispered another story in his ear. I shattered his empire, Horus says, bitterness and pride warring in his voice. I burned the galaxy to break his chains. Picard listens, quiet, then responds with something far more dangerous than a phaser. Honesty. Everyone who fights a tyrant thinks they're building something better, he says, until they look back and realize all they've built is a new graveyard. He doesn't shout, he doesn't accuse, he just asks, and what did your war leave behind, Horus? A better galaxy, or just ruins and a father on a throne of machines? For a second, Horus sees it. The imagery Picard conjures with those words is close enough to his truth to sting. A shattered Imperium, an emperor half dead on a golden throne. Horus's gauntlet hand tightens on the arm of the chair. Careful, Captain, he warns. You know nothing of my war. But Troy does something even more dangerous than Picard's questions. She offers to listen. In her office, she invites Horus to sit. This towering armored figure in a chair built for humans looks almost absurd, but the emotions radiating from him are anything but. She reaches out with her empathic gift and sees a flash of a golden figure offering a hand to a kneeling Horus, a legion chanting his name, banners flying in starlight, brothers laughing, then betrayal, flames, blood on marble floors. The Emperor's face turned from pride to horror, and Horus's own hand delivering a killing blow. Troy gasps and pulls back, tears in her eyes. You loved him, she says softly. Your father. Horus's voice is raw. I killed him, he snarls. I killed everything he built, and it's still killing you. Troy answers. He erupts, slamming a fist into the chair's arm, cracking it. Grief is weakness, he spits. Troy, still shaken, holds her ground. Grief means you still care, she says. That's not weakness. That's the part of you chaos hasn't eaten alive yet. For a moment, the War Master has no words, and in that silence, the Enterprise begins to form a plan. The senior staff gather in the observation lounge. Outside, the anomaly churns, feeding on the psychic interference leaking from Horus like radiation. The longer he stays, the worse the wound becomes. They can't fight him with force alone. Worf tried, security tried, phasers did little. Containment fields warp around him. Even the ship's systems bend to his touch. So Data proposes something radical. If Horus is using the Enterprise as a canvas, they'll use it as a mirror. they will project back into him. Using the ship's computer, internal sensors, and the warp core itself as a power source, they will amplify Counselor Troy's empathic abilities, tethered to Picard's memories, and Data's precise structuring, and direct that psychic waveform at Horus's mind, not to brainwash him, not to control him, but to force him to confront what he's been running from: his own grief, his own guilt, his own love. Dr. Crusher, understandably, calls this insane. If it fails, Horus might trace the connection back and crush their minds like eggshells. If it works, it might break him. And if they do nothing, the warp anomaly outside will eventually swallow them all. Picard, Troy, Data, Geordi, Worf, Crusher, Riker, they all look at each other, each weighing the risk. Then Picard says what they're all thinking. We don't defeat monsters by becoming them. We defeat them by holding on to who we are. They agree. Engineering will become a battleground, and the Enterprise herself will become their weapon. Main engineering is transformed into something halfway between a chapel and a battlefield. Cables coil across the floor. Consoles are reconfigured. The warp core pulses brighter than usual, blue light streaked with faint gold, as Geordi and Data tie it into their psychic amplifier scheme. Picard, Troy, and Data stand near the core, wearing neural bands that link them to the computer and to each other. Crusher stands by with a medical team. Worf and his security officers take positions by the door, graviton tethers and modified phasers at the ready. Outside, in space, the anomaly swells. It is no longer just a wound, it's an open eye. Every step Horus takes through the ship brings its gaze closer. Geordi spots his approach on the sensors. He's coming, he warns, bringing a whole lot of warp contamination with him. The deck plates begin to shake. The doors to engineering slide open. Horus steps through. Against the backdrop of the warp core's pulsing light, he looks like a titan in a cathedral of machinery. Black and gold armor shining, chaos runes flickering. For a heartbeat, he simply looks around, taking it in. You build temples to your engines, he notes. Fitting place for a last stand. Worf steps forward, battered but unbowed.
Horus Lupercal, he roars. You have threatened my captain and my crew. You will not pass. The War Master's eye gleams with warlike appreciation. You remind me of my brothers, he says, always eager to die with a shout. He draws his massive war blade, its edge glowing with warp light. Worf unslings his batolith, and in the heart of a starship, a Klingon and a Primarch collide. Steel crashes against warp-forged metal. Sparks fly. Worf roars with every swing, putting not just his strength but his honor into each strike. Horus parries, counters, his own blows heavy enough to send shockwaves through the deck plating. At one point, Worf's blade bites into a joint in Horus's armor. It doesn't go deep, but it draws a thin rivulet of black-red light. The War Master laughs. You draw blood, he exults. You earn your death. He smashes Worf across the room with a single titanic punch. Security fires. Phasers and modified stun bursts converge. Horus raises his hand. The beams curl around him like a halo. Then he flings their energy aside. Consoles explode. Fire bursts from the ceiling. Picard shouts. Now, Data activates the amplifier. The warp core blazes. The lights dim. A low hum, like a struck cosmic gong, vibrates through every bulkhead. Pain slices through Picard, Troy, and Data as their minds are pulled into something much larger than themselves. Suddenly, they're no longer standing in engineering. They stand in a nightmare. Their surroundings are a twisted fusion of Enterprise corridors and grim dark war scenes. Gothic arches fused with sleek Starfleet bulkheads, glowing LCARS panels embedded in cracked marble. Above them, the ceiling is open, showing a sky not of stars, but of swirling warp storm. And in the center of this landscape stands Horus, not the physical Horus, but the one that exists in his own mind, even taller, even more imposing. His armor fresh and gleaming with the symbols of chaos. His warblade is a shard of night itself. Picard, Troy, and Data appear as themselves, but with faint auras of light, tying them back to a ghostly image of the Enterprise hovering above, like a guardian spirit. Horus turns, eyes blazing. "You dare invade my soul," he roars. His voice cracks the ground. Chasms open, revealing scenes from his past. Planets burning, titanic armies clashing, gods whispering, "We're not here to conquer you," Picard answers, voice echoing strangely in this psychic realm. "We're here to make you see." Troy pushes with her empathic gift, and memories bloom around them. They see Horus the Sun, kneeling before a golden figure and being raised up in pride. They see him leading legions in glory, humanity cheering, not screaming. They see camaraderie, brothers in armor sharing rare, unguarded smiles. They also see betrayal, real and perceived, lies, manipulation, the warp twisting everything, and then the throne room. A massive clash between father and son. Horus's weapon raised, not in defense but in fury. The Emperor's final pained gaze before the blow lands. Troy can barely stand under the emotional weight. "You loved him," she says again. "Your father, your brothers, your legion, and you destroyed them all." Horus screams, rage and anguish in equal measure. Demonic shapes surge up from cracks in the ground, manifestations of his chaos patrons, grotesque and shrieking. They charge at Picard, Troy, and Data. But Data, even here, is logical. He analyzes the constructs, identifies them as patterns of warp energy, and projects structured symbols, geometric lattices, pure mathematical forms that burn the daemons away. "Continue the projection," he says. "We are destabilizing his corruption." Picard steps forward through the storm. "So this is what you've been running from," he says. "Not your father, not the Emperor, yourself." He shows Horus a different set of images, drawn from his own memory. Wolf 359, starships burning under the Borg, his own face as Locatus, cold and inhuman, a man used as a weapon, just as Horus was. "I know what it is to be twisted into something I'm not," Picard says, "to wake up with blood on my hands that I never chose to spill, but I did not let that moment define everything that came after." Horus staggers, metaphysical armor cracking. "You know nothing of loss," he snarls. Picard's answer is simple. "Then learn this. Spending the rest of your existence drowning in guilt doesn't heal what you broke. It just lets your tormentors win forever." Around them, the psychic landscape begins to fracture. Pieces of the past float like islands of memory. Troy pours empathy into the cracks, not to pity him, but to show him that his pain is seen. "You're not just a monster," she tells him. "You're a man who lost everything he loved and didn't know what to do with the hurt. So you turned it outward. You called it war. You called it freedom. But it was just grief." The Emperor appears then, not as he truly was, but as Horus remembers him. Tall, radiant, terrible, and beautiful. "My son," the vision says. Horus drops to one knee, torn between worship and hate. I killed you, he whispers. I killed everything you built. Picard doesn't let it become just another self-flagellation. This isn't about blame, he says. It's about what you do now. Images of the Enterprise crew flicker into being. Worf, battered but still standing in front of Horus's physical body. Geordi, sweating over a console trying to keep the warp core stable. Crusher, running from patient to patient. Random crew clinging to each other in the dark, hoping their captain will find a way. You can kill us, Picard says. You can tear this ship apart. It would be easy. Or, he looks Horus straight in the eye. You can stop, right here, right now. You can choose not to let the worst thing you ever did dictate every choice you make for the rest of eternity. Horus looks at the Emperor's vision, at the faces of the crew, at Picard and Troy. If I let go of my rage, he asks quietly, what am I? Troy's answer is simple. The part of you that loved, she says. The part that led for something better. The son, the brother, the man. For a long, terrible moment, everything hangs in the balance. Then slowly, Horus raises his warblade. Not against Picard, not against the Emperor. He plunges it into the foundation of the corrupted landscape, into the warp-twisted core of himself that anchors the anomaly. The psychic world shatters into light. Back in engineering, reality slams back into place. Horus's physical body convulses. A shock wave of warp energy explodes outward, hurling Worf and the security team to the floor. Consoles blow out. The warp core flares dangerously, then steadies. Black veins that had begun creeping through its glow fade away. The readings normalize. Geordi shouts updates, half disbelieving. The anomaly's collapsing. Warp field contamination is dropping. Picard, Troy, and Data tear off their neural bands, gasping, pale but alive. Crusher rushes to check their vitals, and against all odds, finds them intact. Horus stumbles, steadying himself against a console. His armor is cracked. The chaos runes are dimmer. For the first time, he looks tired. He looks at his hands, at the faint black gold blood dripping from a crack in his gauntlet. He laughs once, a raw, broken sound. You dug into my heart, he says softly, addressing no one and everyone. You nearly broke it. Picard stands, every muscle aching, and meets his gaze. We didn't break you, he replies. You bent, all on your own. Outside, through a small port, they see the anomaly shrinking, its black core folding in on itself, until it's nothing more than a point of light. Then even that vanishes. Horus glances toward that now empty patch of space. The wound closes, he murmurs, but the scar remains. Troy steps forward, taking a risk. You don't have to go back, she says. You don't have to keep fighting the same war forever. Horus smiles sadly. My story is written in blood and warp fire, Counselor, he says. This galaxy of yours is not ready for it, and I am not ready for peace. He raises his arms. Warp light gathers around him again, but it's different this time. Less violently chaotic, more like a controlled storm. Remember this, he tells them all. You looked into the abyss and did not flinch. Few can claim that. His eye settles on Picard, and you, Jean-Luc Picard, stood before a war master and made him hesitate. He gives a small, undeniable gesture of respect, not the bow of a subject, but the salute of one warrior to another. Then he lets the warp take him. In a roar of displaced air and crackling energy, Horus Lupercal vanishes, pulled through the last whisper of the anomaly, back into whatever grimdark corner of reality spawned him. The Enterprise is left battered, but whole. Later in 10 Forward, the ship breathes. The crew trade stories of hallucinations and horrors, of cathedrals and giants, and a man in black and gold armor. Some laugh shakily, some stare into their drinks. At a table by the window, Picard, Troy, Data, Worf Crusher, Geordi, and Guinan sit together. Geordi reports that the warp core is stable. The warp infection is gone. Structural damage can be repaired. They'll be all right.
Crusher notes that some crew are still shaken. Some remember battles they never fought, deaths they never died. It'll take time for the echoes of Horus's mind to fade. Horus is confident they'll get there. Together, she says simply. Worf stares out at the starfield. He was a great warrior. The Klingon says quietly. Twisted, broken, but great. Picard nods. In another life, he says. He might have been remembered as a hero. Guinan, polishing another glass, adds, he still might. Somewhere, stories echo. They change in the telling. Trotri looks at Picard. You saw yourself in him, she says gently. Picard doesn't deny it. A man used as a weapon against his own people, he replies. Yes, but I had something he never truly had. He looks around the table at his officers, at his family, a crew who refused to let me drown. For a moment, they sit together in comfortable silence, watching the healing stars. Worf eventually breaks it. Do you think he will return? He asks. Data considers this in his precise way, as an entity bound to the warp. He says, his existence is non-linear. It is possible. Picard nods slowly, accepting that answer. Then he says, lifting his glass, if chaos returns, we'll be here, ready. Guinan raises her own glass, to surviving gods, monsters, and everything in between. She toasts. The glasses clink. Outside, the Enterprise turns gracefully, warp nacelles glowing to life. The ship stretches into warp, leaving behind the scarred space where a War Master once warped. And somewhere, far away, in a reality steeped in eternal war, a broken son of a dead emperor remembers a small starship that made him question his fate. For the first time in a very long time, he hesitates. And sometimes, for universes built on war, a hesitation is the beginning of hope.